Welcome everyone. In this tutorial I'm gonna talk about what a stack trace over here is, and the main topic of the tutorial, what are objects in JavaScript. So let's start with the second topic, what are objects. First let me introduce you how you create objects. You create them in this way. So objects are variables, as you can see, and here this part over here is called object literal. It does not matter whether or not you put spaces here, whether or not you put line breaks here. It should be just a curly brace, opening one, closing curly brace, and semicolon. So this is the way you create objects. But as you can see here, even not knowing where objects are in JavaScript, you can tell that this object is blank. There is nothing inside curly braces. So we are not very interested in this object, but this is object as well. So let me comment out this part of code. I prepared the part of code beforehand so that not to type and not spend your time, guys. So let's comment out this part of code. Here we have another object. So this object name is obj, and as you can see here, we put something inside of the curly braces. What it means is that we are creating properties. The first property has a name, property name. The second property has a name A. And actually it does not matter what name you pick for the property, but it should be a valid JavaScript variable name. So next we are assigning values to our properties, and we are doing these by typing colon and then putting the value for our property. Once we put the value for our property, we should specify comma if it is not the last property and specify another property after. Actually, here the concept is the same. It doesn't matter whether or not you put spaces or whether or not you put next line symbols. It will work just fine. So here you can see how we can access the properties. Actually, it should be property name and property name. So we access properties in a dot notation. We put a name of the object. In our case, name of the variable which holds the object. After that, we put dot, and we put the name of our property. And what we are getting is we are getting the value of the property. So in this case, when we call console.log, we will take the string object.property name colon. We will take this string over here and concatenate it with the value of this property. And the value of this property, you may guess what? The value of this property is this is a property. So once we get this value, we concatenate them and we output this value to the log with object.property name appended. The same goes for object.a. We just output this string concatenated with the result of retrieving the value of this property a, and the value of this property a is 11, so we should get object.a object.a colon 11. So let me save it, let me refresh. I put breakpoints here before. So as you can see here in the console, we are getting object property name concatenated with a value of object.property name, and the value this is a property name. The same goes for object.a. So that should be pretty simple to get, and if you are not getting, just stick with me. Later on, when we will use objects not just for demonstrating purposes, but we use them in real life, you will get a better hold of them. For right now, try to understand what is happening here, and this will help you immensely to dive into the concept of objects in JavaScript. So let's move on to the third example. Let me clear the console here, refresh the page. Let me save this. So let me say this, refresh, and nothing happens here. Okay, so let's comment out the third part of our demonstration code. So actually, if I'm not posting the code because I think it will be very useful for you to retype everything you see here. So if you're right now watching this, you can pause the video and retype everything. Okay, the same goes for those two. I didn't stop on them because this is really not too much code for you to type. Okay, so here I'm demonstrating an object which holds properties, and the value of those properties are functions, as you can see here. So actually the functions are valid variables in JavaScript, so that is natural that you can expect properties values to be functions. So in this case we are creating an object. Actually we are creating an object over here using an object literal. This whole selected thing over here is called an object literal, and then we are assigning this object literal to our variable object, and now our variable object holds a JavaScript object. So let's look closer at this JavaScript object. It has two properties, property function and randomf, which stands for random function. I just wrote random function which returns 3. And property function just outputs to the console in property function. Just for demonstrating purposes also, there is no use right now in this whole thing. So you can call the functions of an object using the dot notation as well. So the functions of an object are also properties of an object. They're just like regular variables. So if you have a function as a property of an object, this function is called method. So method is just a function which is stored in a property of an object. That's it. And you can call the method using the dot notation and then writing the name of the property which holds the function, or in other words, the name of the method, and putting parentheses, just as with ordinary function. So right here, we are outputting the result of calling a randomf function. That should be clear for you, and if it is not clear what happens here for you, please watch my previous episode where I explained what functions are in JavaScript. In the 24th line, we are actually outputting our property without calling this function. So we are putting the function without actually calling it. And we should get something like the text for our code of the function, or we should get the value of the address in memory where our function is stored. That depends actually on the implementation of the browser, but in our case we should get the text of the function. And here also we should get the text of the function. We are not calling our function, we are not executing it, we are not executing what is written over here. We are just getting this whole thing and outputting it. And this is what happens in these two lines. So save this file. Let's refresh the page. And as you can see here, in the first line we are calling the method property function. So we come over here and execute everything in the body over here. We are outputting to the log in property function. Next, we are going to the 23rd line. And in the 23rd line, we are calling a randomf. So a randomf returns 3, then this 3 is concatenated with this string over here, and concatenated means it's just written one after another. So we output this string, and then we output 3. As you can see here, we output this string with the space over here, and then we output 3. And the next two lines just output the implementation of the function. So we route object.property function, colon, space, which you can see here, and then we concatenate it with the text of our function. The same goes for the 25th line. So that's pretty it about JavaScript objects. If you did not get something, please watch again my video, and if you again not getting something, you can try watching it more times before you get the concept, because I really explain everything here, everything you should know about them. So if you're really not getting, please stick with me. Later we will use objects, JavaScript objects, and I will remind you what they are, and maybe, or actually I'm sure it will be a lot easier for you to get the concept, because right now you just presented with the demonstration and explanation what JavaScript objects are, and before you actually apply them, it may be a little bit confusing. So before we'll move on, let me show you another example. So I just created a code beforehand over here, and I'm going to paste it inside here. So save this file, refresh the page. So we have an error here, and that's because we actually... Okay, let me see where the error happens. Oh, that's bad error. So in z, let's type here save this, refresh, and now we should see no errors. Okay, so let me explain you this example. Let me walk you through the code. At first, we are creating a function and assigning it to a variable called func_b. So now the variable func_b is actually the first function. Then we are creating another function and assigning it to variable func_a. And now func_a is another function. Then we are calling our function func_a with a parameter being an object literal. We are just not assigning it to any kind of variable, we are just passing it directly. And this object gets assigned to this parameter, call it info over here. So once we are in function A, we are outputting in function A1, which means at the beginning, and in function A2, which means in the end of the function. And in the middle of the function, we are executing. So since info is an object, as you can see here, and since it has a method, which is z, we can call this method, what we are doing over here. Then we are calling function b, and we are passing info.z, and this means that we are passing a function of our object by putting dot here. Oh, that may be very confusing for you, but I just wanted to show you that you can do this in JavaScript, and later on we will use it and I will explain it in more depth. Okay, but here you should just understand we are passing a function info.z. This is a function, we are passing this function to our func_b, and we are storing this function which we pass it in variable z. So now here we tell that we are starting the function b, we're executing the function z, which will run this code over here, and then we are telling that we are out of function b. So, but why I decided to show you this example, because this example can clearly demonstrate you what stack trace is used in our sources tab in development tools in Chrome. So save the page. Now let me put the breakpoint somewhere in function b. Let me refresh the page so that the JavaScript code run again, and let's take a look at stack trace. So here we have 3 lines. The first is anonymous line, and this is anonymous because we're executing this code not in any kind of function. We're just executing it in pure file, in our file main.js. So we don't have the name of the function. Then once we come into a function A, we are getting here func_a. That means that we are in function A. And once we come here, as you can see here, we go into the function B. The name shows function B. So what basically call stack is, it is that it shows you what functions you call it in order to get to where you are right now. We are right now over here, and in order to get here, we call it function A and anonymous. So in other words, we come to, we call it this whole block over here, which is anonymous block. Then in this block, we call it function A, as you can see here, and in function A, we call it function B and got here. And actually, if you put breakpoint here and continue execution, you will see that after block B, we come to block of function Z of our object literal, which was created over here. So it may be confusing. I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So thank you guys for watching. Again, if you miss something, if you don't understand something, don't be worried. It will come with time, because with time I will repeat all these topics in more depth while applying them to real life problems. Actually, it won't be problems, it will be demonstrating problems, but it will be very, very close to what you will be doing in your real career of a web developer. So thank you guys for watching again, and see you later. Bye bye.